welcome in Jenny Horne, the co-host of Next Gen Investing, alongside myself, and of course a correspondent here for Schwab Network. And we're talking one of your favorite subjects here, semiconductor chips. Is that something you thought you'd be saying when you were like 16, 17 years old?
I mean, I probably didn't think I'd be saying it when I was like 23 years old. So I think here we are. I mean, you know, you got to rise to the occasion because it's all frankly we talk about. But at least with some positive developments, because I have to say this was a space that saw the unraveling with the overall market, which sure, yes. I mean, a lot of these names do trade with high correlation to the overall market, and they're massive. So I can understand that justification. But also on the fact that we were so concerned about like what the export controls looked like to China, what looming competition looked like overseas. I feel like a lot of this was perhaps a bit overdone. So at least encouraging headlines that support the narrative that perhaps it wasn't a necessarily doom and gloom event that we saw in the spring. The latest version, though, of the beautiful, big, beautiful bill, excuse me, could make it.
13B?
I've said it so many times this week, it's just blending into like one B word, but it could make it cheaper for semiconductor manufacturers, at least, to build plants in the U.S., per some reports we got. But under the bill, tax credits for semiconductor firms would rise to around 35% from 25%, which is more than the 30% increase in the draft version of the bill. Companies eligible for the credits do include Intel, thank goodness, Taiwan Semiconductor, Micron, as well as these companies do continue to expand their manufacturing in the U.S. before now this looming deadline. So I do think that this bill, while widely scrutinized, I mean, bipartisan right now, it seems like sort of angst regarding some of the massive increase in expected spending. But all of this was expected. I mean, this is exactly what we saw the Trump administration run their campaign on. We also do know that following a period of more government and really alternative energy spending friendly, I mean, that we saw under Biden, we're going to see a shift in that. And that's, I think, what right now is being digested by markets. But I mean, this is encouraging and also signaling that, yes, we are going to see certain companies hit by these trade controls, but it's not going to affect them all evenly.
Well, and some of these companies, like a TSMC, just seem like they have so much going for them, given the fact that they're really important in that NVIDIA network, and we know how important NVIDIA is, that it's just going to be tough, even if there was negative news, to set it back. Micron has seemed to be sort of the flavor of the month, though. It's been the company that, like, it seems analysts want to work as we're constantly looking for the next Nvidia. We're looking for the next Broadcom, and we're just continuing to go down to more and more names. Now, the reality is there might not be another Nvidia. We were kind of lucky to see Broadcom. Nvidia is a unicorn in what it's done. When you look at these names, we've talked a lot with different investors as well across our own show. It really does still seem to be, hey, it's NVIDIA. Maybe you can say Broadcom is playing second place, but everybody else is so nowhere to be seen.
Because I think that for NVIDIA, what they've done so well is like their consistency on not only the pace in which they're ramping now new series of like GPUs, which they do command now, I mean, 90% of that very lucrative GPU market, and also being involved in data centers, which have just seen such an outpour of growth and also an outpour of support. I mean, you have your biggest companies in the world shelling out tens of billions of dollars this year in CapEx, expected to be allocated hugely towards this data center build. So that to me is like the first wave of this AI development. But I think there's still a really interesting case to be made for these foundry businesses like Taiwan Semiconductor. I mean, they are like so asset light. Their business model is genius to me. And they position themselves to basically have a hand in every piece of major technology right now that we all know and love. So that makes them interesting. Micron, for example, then high bandwidth memory, which has been very challenged under, I mean, huge demand. They were not able to fulfill that from a supply standpoint. So no one has been able to execute as well as NVIDIA or be in as lucrative of an area of AI as NVIDIA. And that's what continues to separate them from the rest. I mean, there's a reason that they're the biggest company right now in the world.
Well, and then there's a few of these names that I don't want to say they're overlooked because they're not, but they're in a different tier.
They are.
And they
I would say overlooked.
They were the ones that were really struggling due to some of the restrictions on exports that the U.S. had placed on China. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, there was an announcement of rescinding some of that. And you're seeing, of course, subsequent reactions, positive ones, in some of these names that have been most affected by that.
Yeah, and these, I would say, hugely overlooked. I mean, I was like, Synopsys, I haven't looked at this chart in a good while. But actually, nice move today. U.S. government has rescinded, though, its export restrictions to these chip design softwares to China. 3 of the largest players in the space did announce this earlier today. Siemens, which is based actually in Germany, does have its subsidiary Siemens EDA, which is based in Oregon. But as a result of these export control reversals, they did say they've now restored their full access to their recently restricted software as well as technology and resumed sales right now to its Chinese customers. So Synopsys and Cadence also both said they were working to do the same. The U.S. had informed these companies that back on May 23rd, they were required to obtain these various licenses before, of course, making these controls to export in China regarding the technology focused heavily in semiconductors. But it did also follow a tightening of export controls on other products, which did include the restricted sales of these advanced AI processors. Think like Nvidia, AMD. So this was, I'd say, the next tier. If you're putting like the AI wave into tiers, this is a definitely affected space. But chip design software, just not the big bucks that we see in like the rest of the advanced AI processors from like Nvidia.
Jenny Horne, appreciate it. Semiconductors on the move for the right reasons, I would say today. There's a fundamental change of some of these policies that have been impacting them, perhaps underway.